Greetings, brothers and sisters. This here is Yasha Ben Israel, back at you one more time. Wanting to discuss something that I've been hearing float around through the Kemetic community. And it's mostly the Kemetic community. I can't blame it on the atheist community as much as the Kemetic community, simply because the Kemetic people are African people, just like the people who claim to be Israelites. And they're making strong claims that there is no tribes in the western part of Africa or even in the interior of Africa that practice Judaism or that were Israelites or any of that. And that teaching is make believe. I'm punching up here the Beni Israel of Sudan. Of Senegal. Okay? And the first we have here is from the Times of Israel.com. We're going to punch that up and read that and see what that is talking about here. Get off a little bit off into this and see what they had to say here. Post-descente de Beni Israel. Dogotigo Fadiga, outside the Beni Israel Clinic, near the Senegalese village's Sacred Tree, May 2013. The Beni Israel, Senegal, JTA. He will welcome you into his earthen floor home, introduce you to his 3 wives, and let you sample their cooking. But Dogotigo Fadigo does not want foreigners to come near the sacred tree in his village deep in the Senegalese bush. The tree is holy grounds, says Fadiga, president of his remote settlement of 4,000 souls. Our Jewish ancestor, Jacob, planted it when his people first settled here 1,000 years ago. The lush kapok tree towers over the parched shrubbery at the edge of Beni Israel, a dusty community in eastern Senegal near the border with Mali. The residents, all Muslim, are members of a tribe whose name means son of Israel, and they trace their lineage to 2 clans, Silla and Drain. They say are descendants from Egyptian Jews, So Selah and Drain, they say, are descendants of Egyptian Jews. He says that we are all practicing Muslims and we do not want to become Jewish, Fadigo says. In fact, we don't like to talk too much about our Jewish background, but we don't hide it either. We know our people come from Egypt to Somalia, and from there to Nigeria, where they split about 1,000 years ago. One branch of the 2 families went to Mali, another to Guinea, and we settled here. Notice he said we're all practicing Muslims, and we don't want to become Jewish. The truth of such claims is difficult to establish, but West Africa has had a documented Jewish presence since at least the 14th century. Again, but West Africa has had a documented Jewish presence since at least the 14th century, when several Jewish merchants set up shop in Timbuktu in western Mali. Jews kept trickling in from Spain and Portugal during the Inquisition of the 15th and 16th centuries, and later from Morocco. Gideon Bahar, Israel's former ambassador to Senegal, says Jews maintained a constant presence in the area until 1943, when the last Jewish settlement was uprooted from Guinea-Bissau, Senegal's southern neighbor, then a Portuguese colony under the rule of pro-fascist dictator Antonio de Oliveira Salazar. Beni Israel is a striking example of his name, but there are many other ways in which this area's little known but rich Jewish presence has influenced it, says Bahar, one of few Westerners to have visited Beni Israel. Bahar believes the historic presence is responsible for some of the faint Jewish traces still visible in the region. I repeat, Bahar believes the historic presence is responsible for some of the faint Jewish traces still visible in the region. West African musicians often decorate the traditional 21-string bridge harp known as kora with Jewish symbols, including the Star of David. And some words in Wolof, a widely spoken language in Senegal, bear more resemblance to Hebrew pronunciation than Arabic, which is spoken in neighboring countries. This is the reason why Eyob ben Solomon, he was from Senegal, and he was Job ben Solomon, which is a Hebrew name. Notice he says that some words in Wolof, a widely spoken language in Senegal, bear more resemblance to Hebrew pronunciation than Arabic, which is spoken in neighboring countries. Now, being that Job ben Solomon was a Muslim, he was from the Beni Israel clan of the Senegal, of the Senegalese Israelites. And they had no shame in not denying that they were the Beni Israel, the children of Israel, son of Solomon. He had no shame in that. But at the same time, notice that they called themselves the Beni Israel clan and the Beni Israel family, in the Beni Israel tribe, okay? And notice Job ben Solomon, okay? If it was Arabic, his name would have been Eyob ibn Sulayman. It would have been Ibn Sulayman, okay? This is why he said that their words bear more resemblance to Hebrew pronunciations than Arabic, which is spoken in neighboring countries. The Wolof word for cheek is pronounced lehi, as in Hebrew. One of Wolof's words for wise is pronounced the same as the Hebrew word kakum. A weaver or fabric merchant is called Rab, similar to rabbi. The Beni Israel also have a cultural trait in common with the Jews, an aversion to intermarriage. According to Khadija, the community tries not to assimilate, preferring to wed with members of the tribe who live in neighboring villages. I believe there is an element of truth to to the tradition of the Beni Israel, especially since they have nothing to gain from pretending, says Bahar, who returns from Senegal in 2011. They're not seeking Israeli citizenship, nor are they claiming to be Jewish. In fact, their Jewish ancestry and name can only give them problems. Though their Jewish association is potentially problematic in a Muslim country, understand that. Though their Jewish association is potentially problematic in a Muslim country, according to Behar, some residents have sought to change their village name in their passports to permit travel to Mecca. The story of the Beni Israel's origin is not universally accepted in Senegal. Abdul Qadir Taslemenka, a Senegalese writer who published a book last year about the community, Beni Israel of Senegal, says the name has nothing to do with Jews and in fact is taken from the title of a chapter of the Quran. Some accounts do, however, support the last leg of the journey that Fadiga describes. So some accounts do support it. The Beni Israel are speakers of the Jahinki dialect, the language of the Diankenki tribe, which the International Journal of African Historical Studies says migrated down the Niger, settling in Mali, Ghana, Gambia, and Senegal. They're not seeking Israeli citizenship, nor are they claiming to be Jews. In fact, their Jewish ancestry and name can only give them problems. In his village, Fadiga is known as the Marabal, the local equivalent of a shaman or bush doctor. Shamba Diop, a villager in his 40s, says Fadiba has special healing powers that allow him to cure snakes and scorpion bites with his hand. Children who suffer from epilepsy are encouraged to bite on omelets made by Fadija's younger wives from goat skin. When a snake bites one of us, we go to him and then the snake dies, Diop says. Unlike most villagers in the area, the Beni Israel live in houses made of brick instead of mud and thatched huts. It also was the first village in the area to have a clinic and electrical generators, according to Fadija. The school in Beni Israel is surrounded by a tall brick wall. Inside, teachers give lessons in French, math, and science. The school day begins at 5:30 a.m. and finishes by noon. When the asbestos roofed classroom becomes as hot as an oven, so they had to stop classes around noon because it get hot in their asbestos thatched classrooms. Some relatives' luxuries are financed by about 1,000 Beni Israel who live in the Senegalese capital of Dakar or in France, sending monthly donations back to the village, usually for the region. The money is not sent directly to relatives, but is placed in a communal trust that pays for health services and schools, which in turn service not only the village but the entire remote region. This place is blessed and people are chosen, Fadiga says. But some people resent us for it. So best not to talk about it much. This is the Beni Israel clan. Yes, yes, there was a lot that went on in Africa. And I talks about a lot of how Askia Muhammad banned the Jews. He banned the Israelites. He banned those that practice Hebrewism and Judaism. The Israelites, he banned them from the Songhai Empire. Notice how it was talked about in here, how they lived near Mali. Okay? Right there where it says, uh, it talk about how they live near the borders. Senegal, in a dusty community in eastern Senegal near the border with Mali. They lived near Mali because in Mali they were very dominant. They were dominant, they ruled all of northern Africa. And then when Islam came, Islam forbade them. And this is the very reason why you don't see many traces of it, because Askia Muhammad banned the practice and the proclaiming of the Israelites in the Songhai Empire. And the penalty, like he said, it could cause problems for them. You see, they weren't seeking Israeli citizenship because their Jewish ancestry, and their name can only give them problems. It could cause them to be reduced into slavery and get themselves killed or deported, expelled, you know. So that is just one article, and we're just reading, doing a little research, because many are saying that there's not no people in Africa that claims to be Jews. And these people claim to be the original Jews because they do not deny their Jewish ancestry. They don't practice the Jewish faith, but they're saying that they are the direct descendants of the original Israel.